because it's really, every center should have a media access place where kids are sharing stories, adults are sharing stories, elders are mentoring youth, youth are inspiring elders, and it's really this kind of reciprocal agreement, and that's something we have fostered at the Film Center that I would hope you enjoy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up to questions just to kind of facilitate this, some recent things we've done which are quite exciting. We just got a grant. I mean, maybe I'm contradicting myself, this whole notion about don't send your kids to us, we'll come to you. We just wrote a grant to the Annenberg Foundation, and we received this grant. We bought an old school bus, and we just converted it to run on vegetable oil. When we put solar panels on the roof, and so the whole objective is, when we were kids, you know, the filmmobile that would come to your, the bookmobile that would come to your school and inspire you about literature, the power of literature. And as a kid, I remember, going on there and reading those books and touching that. So the premise is we're calling it the filmmobile, and we're going to go to communities, underserved communities, and show up, be it for a day or for a week, and teach kids that don't have the same access. You know, I hear stories all the time. We did a documentary in South Dakota last year, and we were with the Sioux tribe in Rosebud, one of the most blighted communities in the United States. And we said, we'd love to teach your kids. And they said, well, we have one computer on the reservation. And so the idea became like, if we can bring this philosophy, this ideology, South Dakota's a long ways away, but even in underserved communities in Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, in the valley. So having this vehicle, literally a vehicle and a symbolic vehicle for change is one of the new exciting things we're working on. So you can ask me about that later. So I know I'm very kind of all over the place with this lecture, but hopefully you kind of felt that love and that energy that I felt from you and this space. Are there any questions about media literacy, about the Film Center, about maybe ways you can get involved in your own communities? I know this gentleman had a very passionate testimony of his own experience. Maybe you just want to share some stories or relate it to the Film Center? Sure.
I just wondered if you, I know it's about community. I'm sure most of the youth are on the internet community.
Yeah.
How are you embracing that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I started the lecture with this notion of, access, right? And when I first started making films 15 years ago, it was cost prohibitive to make films. There wasn't really this digital revolution. And so now it's getting more affordable, but still not totally accessible for people. And also the notion of uploading to the internet. Once again, I cater my kind of speech to different audiences, but yeah, the notion of YouTube and ways to get things out there. We promote the work. We're only open 10 months out of the year, because as an educator and also as a filmmaker, my first love was traveling with my own work, as I alluded to with my father's story. So we close in January and July, and we travel with the students' work. We've done tours through Mexico, through Japan, through Europe, and once again, showing work to other cultures. So that's one vehicle, physically, showing a film made by a 13-year-old in Mexico or in Italy, and creating this dialogue between cultures. So I'm a big proponent of the internet and getting work out there. I think, with it, there's an oversaturation of content, I think is sometimes the problem, and where to find the most relevant work. But I love the notion that you can be anywhere and click on and see a movie that inspires you. So I don't know if I answered the question appropriately, but I think it's a vehicle for change, certainly, yeah. I guess the caveat of that is still not a lot of people have access to the internet, internationally. It's still a difficult thing for a lot of communities to get access to, where with this kind of caravan where we show up, like this notion of the itinerant cinema that was prolific in Mexico and India and a lot of cultures, in the 1920s and 30s, where you would physically go to a town, and we always do free shows, and all of a sudden we have music and we have films. It really kind of embraces that community, so we take it on the road as often as possible. So.
Tell us, I know you said it's run by volunteers, but how many people work there? How does that work?
Well, yeah.
How many people did you take to start it?
Yeah, sure. I'm the founder of the center, the co-founder. I teach at a junior college. I teach filmmaking. And it was actually a sweet story. One of my students took my class 10 years ago and grew up in the Midwest and could fix anything, like his Trans Am, his fridge, his car, and heard that I wanted to open a cinema and a school. There was really no retail component, but I remember, it's a funny story, I was lecturing at the college, and it was like kind of up this sloped area, and there's a little window, and I saw Ken banging on the window, like he'd just heard that I wanted to open this thing. And he's this kind of mild-mannered man, very passive, very calm. And he had said after taking my class, he had learned to fix cameras. He became obsessed with film cameras, right? So with my vision of having the school and the cinema, he brought a business perspective to it, where we did camera repairs, we did rental of cameras, and it was great because a lot of nonprofits, I think a lot of you come from that world, it's always a struggle for funding. So we had a very successful business model that helped to pay the rent, buy new equipment, buy new cameras. So the two of us started it. I've recently, once again, more than you need to know, but I met a woman that I'm so madly in love with that was a volunteer, and now she is also kind of one of the core elements of the Film Center. And when I say volunteer, for the first 5 years and 9 months, we were volunteer, absolutely. 50, 60 hours a week. Just recently, we got a grant to pay staff, but pennies on the dollar. If I told you what I was getting paid, you would laugh. So, but it's symbolic that we're starting to pay some of the teachers for teaching the kids, because for us to really grow, and people ask about, when I say grow, I don't want to be a monopoly or a franchise, but just to be sustainable, we're trying to get to that level. So it'll take a few more years, I think, but that's kind of the story, yeah. And then hundreds of volunteers that come in, maybe just mentor a kid or come to a screening. I mean, we had, I think, 5,000 people come to the Film Center last year, be it for an event or to see a film or to borrow a camera. We taught hundreds, like I've mentioned, so it really is a community resource. Richard's comments that this kind of exclusivity, you know, it's beautiful to see, you know, abuela sitting next to the young hipster, to the person, you know, the banker that wants to make a film. Like, it's really this kind of community that it feels very inclusive, and it feels like everyone is treated equally. But
how does it work exactly? Are the students coming after their regular school hours? And can you tell us a little bit more about the program?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the structure is, coming from a filmmaking background and also an education background, people learn differently. So with as many parents here, or surrogate parents, the children like the routine, or maybe they don't like the routine, but it's successful in teaching them. So they have to come once a week for kind of lecture, tutorial. We show films, we talk about filmmaking. And it's a 12-week course. And then after that, they can come anytime they want. So anytime we're open, they come in, and, you know, often I spend most of my time teaching filmmaking. I spend a large amount of my time counseling youth about situations in their neighborhood, you know, that all youth deal with, and that's a big part of it, and I enjoy that part of it. But they have to commit to a class, and we call it tough love. The first day, all the parents have to come, or a guardian. We meet the parents, we instill this kind of trust, because you know, I think, like as I said, over 400 kids, I think we've had one camera broken and one camera stolen, which is amazing, because we give the kids the cameras, they take them home. A lot of youth film media programs, you know, you make the film in 1 hour in the classroom, but that's not real filmmaking. You need to trust these kids, and by meeting the parents and establishing this trust, we've been quite fortunate. So that's how it works. Once a kid's taken a class, they can come in anytime they want. It's open, they can borrow equipment, they kind of get a little certificate, and they become part of the Film Center. Same thing with adults. You know, any given day, you'll have, like I mentioned, you know, an 80-year-old grandmother making a film about her grandson next to someone trying to do a resume to get into college. Like, it's really this kind of energy, community energy, that you would feel at other community centers. So I encourage you to visit. But that explains the education program.
I was wondering what it means for you to politicize someone, or for someone to become politicized. I have a sense of what you might mean, but I was wondering if you could maybe talk about it in terms of what you've envisioned, or specific examples of what you've seen with what you've been involved in. Yeah,
I think it's a good question. I mean, it's a catchphrase that sounds good, but how is it relevant to what they're doing? I think the notion that, you know, with the LA River piece was one in specific, right? A lot of the kids, you know, maybe would just throw their trash into the storm drain, or really feel that, like, there was, you know, why should I ride my bicycle when I can drive to the store that's 2 blocks away, right? So by politicizing them, making them aware there's a river in Los Angeles, and it deserves to be green, and there's ways that we can, you know, take out some of the concrete, and we can make it healthy again. So some of them instilling these environmental issues, and then talking to their own families about issues of recycling and other things. So when I say politicized, sometimes it's as subtle as that. Maybe I will recycle this tin instead of throwing it in the storm drain. Other times it's, you know, kids making very passionate anti-war films, or other things about affordable housing or immigration, like I said. So politicizing for me is taking someone who's living their life oblivious in many ways to what's going on around them, and all of a sudden saying, I have a voice, I'm a young person, I deserve to be heard. And that's what I mean by when I say politicize. So. Yeah, I mean, these are philosophical questions, and I can give you my interpretation. I think Not every child is politicized, and I think maybe this is a buzz term that semantically I've misused or misrepresented, but for me it's about trust and it's about community is kind of the core of it, right? So if a child takes a class for 12 weeks, they may never make a film again,